Yeah.
Okay. There's two newspapers in Tulsa at this point. And one of
Black
them,
Star.
what's the other one? The
I don't-
White- And so, that bless you twice, that newspaper, on the white side of town is really fomenting this, because this is, yellow journalism in the 1920s, lots of, what is yellow journalism? Yeah, it's propaganda. Why would you engage in it if you're a journalist?
I guess people buy papers.
So people buy papers, all right? You want people to buy your paper, so you sensationalize things. Do we do that today? No, thank God we don't. I'm just kidding. Of course, we make it.
Depends on which media you're watching, to which story you're getting.
All the media. You know, every time I turn on Fox News, happening in the world, it's a red alert day.
I used to look at foreign media to see what's happening in the United States, but then the foreign media got all crazy.
Just don't tell us about water.
It's good to
I think it's called the Tulsa Tribune. Wasn't it called the Tulsa Tribune?
It might be. It's either
The
that
White
or
Star and then
Yeah, you're right.
Because there's several books on this. I've read several books on the Tulsa Race Massacre. This one, I know it's literature, and the main characters are fictional, but the events that are happening talk about how both the newspapers were trying to, one was trying to calm the situation, the other one was trying to inflame the situation, just for publicity. And so this is very political. It's very much about marketing and making money. So it's kind of, we don't normally think about those aspects, but newspapers at this point in the 1920s, there's a morning edition and there's an evening edition. I remember when I was a little kid, there was still an evening edition of a lot of newspapers. So that's how you caught up on the news. So the evening editions are coming out and they're chronicling what's happened, sort of as live as you could get it at this point. So a white crowd goes down outside the jail. They want the attention of the individual so that they can live. Okay. Was that common? Was that common?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very common. In fact, in the book, which we're not going to talk about yet, it starts off with two lynchings that occur within a day of one another. One a white lynching, one a black lynching. Those are actually real things that happened in 1920 to sort of set the stage for what happens later in the massacre and what sets the
And
stage.
the White Lynch and the sheriff there actually said it was good that they did that. I read the report on it.
Okay.
So you were just saying that?
No, I read the report.
You read the report. You probably should preface it with that.
I said that's what he said, and then I said he read the report.
Okay, good job. Okay, so what happens, the white mob is outside the jail. The sheriff at this point goes up, they take the elevator to the top floor, they stop it to where it can't go down, thinking we're gonna do everything.
A bunch of World War I veterans decided they're gonna go protect him, and make sure he gets his due process.
So primarily younger blacks arm themselves and march over, and I think I'm gonna have some pictures in just a second. They walk across the tracks and they go up to the jail, and what do you think is gonna transpire there?
The police are gonna try to protect him.
Police are gonna, well, the police protect the prisoner, and they try to calm the situation. What eventually transpires is shots are fired, as Paxton said, and then the blacks start retreating back towards Greenwood. Okay, is anyone familiar with this area? You see all across, it's not white and black anymore, it's all been gentrified. But you can stand right there on the tracks where the crossing happened and just kind of imagine what happened, because some of the buildings are still there, at least on the white side of town. So they retreat back across the tracks, and then what happens?
the Tulsa Race Massacre. That's like
Okay,
triggered.
I need more detail. There was a race massacre. I need more information.
He wasn't lynched.
He wasn't lynched? Okay, he was not lynched. We know later that while the massacre was going on, I've already forgotten the guy's name.
Oh,
Dick Rowland is taken by the sheriff in a car, and he's taken to another community, so he doesn't, I think he and his family, so nothing happens to him as a result of this. But meanwhile, the whites are amassing along railroad tracks, the sheriff is keeping them on the white side of town, and eventually they have this sense that at dawn, we're going in, okay? Because if you read the book, you get a sense that everybody thinks the fighting has stopped, okay? Because Althea and Graceful are walking towards downtown, and the stop hearing the gunfire. What's happened is the whites are waiting for, they're waiting for dawn, okay? So they're waiting for June 1st. All this first stuff happens the last day of May 1921, yes.
Wasn't he released because she declined to press charges on him?
He might have been released later, but he's still in custody during all of this.
Yeah, but then he was like quietly released. Because she.
Yeah, at some time later,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So then at dawn, the whites go across the railroad tracks, and what is their goal?
Well, they want to get rid of the blacks, but they're looting because they're jealous, seeing how nice some of the areas and stuff like that. Until a white person without them is being there for them or something.
Okay. Okay, lots of churches, lots of homes. Their idea is to wipe this section out. If you're, these FBI files probably don't go into this, but Rilla Askew, who writes this book, she talks about in several articles where she's interviewed about the book. She's asked what her main sources are. And her main sources, because this book comes out in 2001, right? So it comes out before most people knew anything about the Tulsa Race Massacre, and her major source are the newspapers on both sides. So she's able to read that last edition of the Star, the Tulsa Star, and she's able to read some other neighboring black newspapers that are reporting on it, but she gets all of those newspapers that characterize that white. If we go over there and we take this land, we see this prime real estate. And the way that that real estate, Greenwood, had been described in the newspapers at the time is these are brothels, these are prostitute dens, these are places of ill repute, gambling houses. So you had a sense that they're able to publish in the newspaper on the white side of Tulsa a description that's just on the side of the railroad tracks. It's like going from Texas Wesleyan over to Lancaster. It's a short.
The black side was nicer than the here on the white side.
It's a short distance, and yet they knew nothing about it because they never crossed. All right, and so you're able to say, you know what's over there is these brothels. And so when you say, let's go clear out that land, let's seize this real estate, let's bring it in and make money off of it ourselves, it starts to it makes more sense to the white people. In fact, so it's about using propaganda in the media to achieve this. So these and white supremacists, we're talking about people that want economic opportunity, they want to seize goods in stores and other property that's on that side of town. But it's people from all walks of life. There are documents that show that these aren't just rebel rousers. There are people who are well educated. There are doctors. There are attorneys. There are people that are working for the city that are participating in this. So this is a mass movement of primarily men, but there's some women involved as well, going across and trying to live in Greenwood while this is happening. And so as they are pushing blacks further and further north, because Greenwood's on the north side of Tulsa, if you look at the map, the idea is to destroy the Greenwood district. That is this business district, this Black Wall Street, which W.E.B. Du Bois called it the most.
The candy shop right next door. I mean, everything I read about it outside the book, it was a beautiful area.
I'm not sure it was any nicer or less nicer than the white side of town.
Right, but you gotta figure, in that point in time, for blacks to have something that nice, I mean, yeah.
It was on par with the white side of town.
Yeah.
That is, if a white person came from somewhere else in the United States and they went down Greenwood, it would just look like a nice area of town. if a black person from Mississippi or Louisiana in the 1920s came to visit Greenwood, they just wouldn't believe it, if that makes some sense. So this is one of the best pictures that I've ever found that shows it. So this is all the Greenwood district here. So you see, these are businesses. It was a business district. There was lots of money being made there. Tulsa was making most of its money at this point off the oil industry. It was this oil boom town, where people would go outside of town, drill, there'd be boom and bust. People were making lots of money. So there's lots of money changing hands. And these black businesses are able to take advantage quite a bit of that. And it did provoke some jealousy. If you read those newspaper articles from the white side of town, there's definitely some jealousy going on. This is a sense of the destruction in the aftermath. I mean, it looks like World War II bombing in Germany, where you just have just shells of building. And you can see white Tulsa back here in the background with the taller, not really skyscrapers, but with the taller buildings there in the background. It's the movie theater that I mentioned just a second ago. In the book, which we'll discuss in a second, you get a good sense of how they're not only destroying the Greenwood business district, but they're also going into the residential part of the north side of Tulsa, where blacks are living. A lot of these shotgun homes, if you know that term, yeah. And so this is, and you can see officials here, while this might be kind of hard to tell, I don't know if that's fire equipment, but they're just standing around while the buildings are burning. Because the idea is we don't want you to put out the fires. In fact, Askew in the book talks about or describes how when the fire department wanted to cross over the tracks and go into Greenwood, the mob stopped them. She actually says they went back to the fire station on the morning of June 1st, 1921. This is a bad picture, but you get a sense of the ruined homes. This is the Greenwood district back here, and this is the homes in the front and the foreground. Better picture, this is the business district. You can see it's all level. More pictures. These are actually from some of the postcards at the time. This is a black family trying to salvage whatever's left from their burned out home. And then you get into some of the postcards. I know some of these are pixelated, but these are actual postcards. On the other side, there would have been notes. I'm not showing you any of the reverse sides because most of it is extremely racist. We talked about postcards and religion and whatnot in the last class. But you see here, it's called Little Africa, which is a common term of the white side of town to call the Greenwood district. But whoever wrote that at least realizes that it's a race riot. But from their perspective, it's the blacks who are rioting. It's not the whites. Because although the whites marched over to south into Tulsa on the white side of town, what did they want? Did they want to loot and destroy buildings?
Although the blacks went to the south side.
What did the black, did I say whites?
You said
What did the
whites.
blacks want when
They
they?
just wanted to protect that one kid, make sure he had.
Yeah, they just wanted to make sure that nothing happened to the prisoner. They didn't even want him released. But that's one of the few pictures of the blacks marching over across across the railroad tracks. And you can see they look like an army. So, so let's spend some time talking about the text, because one of the reasons I picked, this text was because it gives you a good sense of the politically and racially charged climate of Oklahoma at the time. I'm going to pull up. Pulling this up because this is what I will ultimately use to critique.
Just in canvas.
It's connected to the assignment, but I'm just going to, this is the book review for the history, so it's not history resource. So let's just talk a little bit about the book itself. So how does it start?
No.
Weird. She gets picked by the cat.
It's a really weird story. I have to admit, when I first read the book, I'm like, what the hell is going on here? It's dusty. You just have this sense of confusion at the beginning. And I remember thinking, I hope the whole book is not like this. And I remember when I started rereading the book last week, I thought to myself, oh, I hope none of the students stop here, because this is a weird way to start the book. Did y'all have that sensation?
Althea would have never been looked at by the guy she married had he known where she came from at that time.
That's true. So as I think you might have said, so it's a story at the very beginning about Thea's family, dirt poor. I guess they could be called white trash, maybe. Would that be appropriate?
They're definitely of a lower caste.
Okay, of a lower caste, certainly not worthy of Franklin. Is that what I was going to say, Franklin? Okay. Certainly not worthy of Franklin. She has to go out in the middle of a dust storm to tend a mother that's,
No, motherless.
a motherless calf. So the calf had been born, but the mother was not around. And she gets into the pen, and she gets frightened. And I'm only going into this, and I'm not going to go look at this detail because this is kind of important. And she screams.
Pregnant mother.
And her mother, who's pregnant, evidently quite pregnant, comes out to help her daughter and steps into the pen, and what happens to her? The calf kicks her, and it's kind of a weird.
Described it pretty good.
Yeah, because it kind of kicks the baby over to the side. And so we're kind of introduced to Althea, because Althea is that child that called her mom out there. So you can imagine she lives with this guilt. She has this lower class origin. She lives with this guilt. Then we go through the birth, and this is where, what's the woman say?
The Indian woman.
Yeah.
Who comes in later in the book.
Iola.
Is it Iola? Yeah, doesn't she have other names? There's like 3 or 4 names to her. They were all in the quiz.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever the woman's name is, the midwife comes to the house. She appears throughout the book. She comes to the house, gets the baby born. The mother sees the baby and says what?
Iowa blood good bullet tiger long.
Tiger. Okay, let's just call her Tiger. That's the word I'm looking for. The baby is born, and what does the mother? And the baby is alive. What does the mother ask?
Kill it.
Kill it. Kill this baby. We don't really know what happened after that. We just kind of assume the baby, somebody fulfills the mother's wish. We found out later that Althea is the one that's supposed to go out there and kill the baby. And she got stopped right about here. So I'm very, Greek was the female child syndrome thing that the ancient Greeks used to do if they had too many females. Going to dash the baby down on the ground when Claire takes the baby and only raises it herself. Or finds somebody to take the child. And we don't know anything yet. We put that together later in the book. Okay. So that's the opening scene, is this weird birth sequence. Then we immediately move to Althea. And she's Althea Dittmeyer. Dittmeyer is Franklin's last name. Describe her. She's wealthy. Are they really wealthy?
She's a catch woman, she's got everything she wants, she's laid on hands, but
But she likes to complain about, but she has a corporation, she wants to like everything's exposed.
Okay.
And the oil is not like super successful. but
Yeah.
everything
I would say she's probably just like, upper middle class, I would call her wealthy. She has a nice house, they have a live-in maid slash housekeeper. And she's neurotic. She's odd, she becomes normal. She goes through periods of mental incapacity, I guess would be a good way of describing it. She has a housekeeper, the housekeeper's name is Graceful. And how does the author describe Graceful?
slow.
She doesn't get riled up, she doesn't get mad when somebody like loses it on her, when it's not really justified.
Yeah, Althea is the boss you can never make happy. You wax the floor, she's not happy with it. You cook something, she's not happy with it. She tends to follow Graceful around the house while she's working, so keeping an eye on her. But Graceful, it doesn't seem to faze her at all, right? As you point out, she just sort of keeps doing her work. She never shows facial expression. And as was describing Graceful, what are sort of the adjectives that she uses? Or how does she describe Graceful and her attitude? Because we get a sense of her face is always stoic, but Askew says, sort of beneath the surface. Is she happy? Yeah, she's angry, she's furious. I mean, you get the sense she's seething with anger, but it doesn't show on her face, right? So we just kind of know this. Why is she seething with anger?
Because she's not gonna put up with it. You can talk down to him. She's a woman, because you need to learn.
Okay, is that the only reason? I mean, Texas Wesleyan is really not always the best place to work, but I usually don't see with anger. I'm gonna take it out of you guys. What would cause her to see with anger? Is it just her job? Where was she raised? Raised in Greenwood. So, tell me what Greenwood is like for a black person. If I'm a black person and I'm walking down the street in the southern part of myself, and a white person approaches me, I step out into the street. If I'm even allowed on the street in the first place. What's that we spent the last year talking about? It's not driveways.
I don't know.
They're all kind of well-to-do or not well-to-do, they're all respectful, there's no racism. It's all one race, they get along, the kids go to school. they
It's
go
not
to
all, it's
church.
not all one race. A white person could come to, and many white people, not many women would come, but men would come if they need something at the hardware store. How were they treated? If I wanted candy at the candy store in the white part of Tulsa and I was black, I'd have to go through the back entrance. If I'm black and I want candy at the candy store that's held by the same person that runs a movie theater, that owns a movie theater, where do I go?
Go through the front door because you choose an equal.
I go through the front door. If a white person shows up at the candy store in Greenwood, how do they enter?
The front door.
They go through the front door, all right? So imagine you're raised in this environment where you don't see, you don't have the Jim Crow. And then you work because you need to send money home to your mother. Why does your mother need money? What happened to Dad? He died. Okay, so the father's out of the scene, so she's having to work, and she's constantly throughout the book. I don't think they're really ever together. Mother and daughter are only together for short amounts of time. But for the most part, she's constantly thinking about her mother, concerned about her mother, wanting to get back to her mother, help her siblings. So this is a woman who is working, and no doubt sending, the book doesn't say this overtly, but no doubt sending some of that money back to support her parents, to support her mom and the kids that are being raised, all right? And so I think the seething with anger that is characteristic of Graceful throughout the text, because she remains stoic. I mean, even when she goes into labor, she's pretty stoic until the very end. But she's seething with anger because she's having to be in this Jim Crow household where she's treated like dirt. And she can't say anything about it. Okay? So what happens if she gets up to her boss? She's going to get fired. Okay. So before we get into some details of the rest of the book, so what's Althea's problem? Why do you think? She's mental. Yes, she's mental, but she's a fictional character. So we have to ask. So she's not a real. That she didn't exist in reality. So what is Ashley trying to do? She's not just, oh, I like crazy characters, I put one in my book. She's doing something by making her mental. Why is Althea mental? Do you think?
Low education.
Okay, low education. Trauma. What trauma? You just tell something about that. I appreciate that. What do you think, sir? With the whole, okay, the whole verse, you mean with her mom, the cat, and she might feel a little bit guilty about that. Because what happened to that infant? What happened to the infant that she was working with?
Maybe when we say,
What happens to it eventually? What happens to it in the book? That's her brother. If you haven't made it that far, might be a little spoiler for you. That's her brother, okay? Because very early in the book, in the first 50 pages or so, we're introduced to her and this weird relationship she has with Graceful, and suddenly her brother shows up. And we don't know anything about him. We don't know that he's this baby that she was supposed to get rid of or anything in the very beginning. It all kind of comes together. It's one of these stories that the puzzle starts to all
oh,
come
you know,
together.
she doesn't want her in.
She doesn't want him in the house
Because he holds like secrets.
because he holds these secrets. Okay. What's his issue?
He's a racist.
Okay. As are almost all of the white people in the book.
In the book, the white guy who was lynched, okay? Two white guys and a white woman robbed a taxi driver. And the taxi driver ended up dying. Well, the taxi driver, before he died, identified, I want to say Cantrell, but and something with a C was the last name of the guy who was lynched. And that's the woman the sheriff said, it was good to see you, we can get rid of the riffraff. The sheriff said that. So the book, Askew is putting in that the brother was possibly the other guy. The book doesn't say there was a girl involved. They just said there was two guys, and they were looking for the other
Yeah,
guy.
let's stick to the book, not the FBI.
Right, but I'm sticking to the book. So at one point in the book, he's actually explaining to somebody about being there and getting a piece of the clothing or the rope or something like that.
Because it was his
Right.
partner. He
Yeah.
says later, that was his partner.
But Althea doesn't know this.
No.
But she knows this is the type of person he is,
Okay. Why does he show up at the house?
because he needs a place to hide.
He needs a
Hide
place-
right under everybody's nose, they won't believe he's there.
He needs a place to hide because they just mentioned his partner, and he presumes that they're looking for him as well. Okay, so, and he's white, okay, just to clarify, he's white. And then there's a black lynching that occurs, the next, is it the next day? I think it is. the
Very
next
soon.
day, In Tulsa.
Well, when they lynched the white guy, it was actually said, if they'll lynch a white guy, and this is the blacks, they'll have no problem coming after us.
So a black guy is lynched in Tulsa the next day, right? So and this is happening 6 months or so. It's not a full year, but it's in 1920 when this is happening. And so the situation is very racially charged. They lynched a white person, they lynched a black person, and so Althea's brother, whose name is Jacob, is hiding out in their house. Okay. The husband comes home, who the hell is this? What does she tell him? He spends the night there, she doesn't tell him anything. Can you imagine
That was
that?
the Belton lynching.
Doesn't tell him anything. But he allows the guy to stay. The next morning, Japheth, Althea's brother, who's the partner of the white guy that got lynched, finds out that Franklin is in the oil business. Is in the oil business. And so he wants in on the oil business. And so the main story of the whole book is, that's the context in which the book is taking place. And oil has to do with, you have the midwife, okay? That midwife pops back up, and she does a really interesting thing. If you haven't gotten far enough into the book, the font changes. There's at least 3 different, maybe 4. There's another, like, very typewritery font towards the end that they don't identify unless you have an idea who it is. But you get these different voices. Okay? You get the regular font that's telling you most of the story, and then there's this, I don't know any of the names of the fonts. There's another font that tells you the perspective of the midwife, Tiger. Okay? And then there's that weird typewriter font at the very end that seems to be giving us a perspective, a white perspective from Tulsa, as the events of 1921 are transpiring at the end of May, June the 1st. So you're getting all these different perspectives. So we go through the book. We have this relationship between Graceful and Althea. At one point, Graceful is asked to come home. Why is she asked to come home? Her mom sends a letter through Hegemon.
Who works in the newspaper.
Works at the newspaper. He sends this really weird letter. Graceful gets it. Graceful Whiteside gets it. That freaks out Althea for what reason?
Because it's her last name also.
Because it's her maiden name. And so there's no indication that they're related because they have the same last name, but this really throws Althea. And I was reading some things about Askew, who talks about this. She writes this story as a sense of redeeming. It's a redemption story because I think we look at, and you use the word psychotic, neurotic. Okay. We look at Althea and we might see someone who's neurotic or psychotic or whatever, but Askew writes it in such a way that she's seeking redemption. She's seeking redemption for what she did to her brother, what she attempted to do to her brother, and in a way she's seeking a place in society because she's she's representing as something she's not, right? She was lower class, and yet she's representing as upper class, and so she really doesn't fit into society. And so what Askew is trying to do is reconcile this. And an interesting way of reconciling it, I think, is and we had the same last name. We're not different, okay? And so when Graceful leaves the house, what's Althea's attitude? Good riddance to bad rubbish? She doesn't just kind of miss her.
She goes in the morning.
She goes in the morning, looking for her, having to find her, traipsing over into Greenwood, and what happens to her?
Blisters on her feet.
She gets blisters on her feet, she walks all the way across Tulsa. In my mind, she was wearing high heels or something like that. She has blisters on her feet, she passes, I think, the confectionery store, and they invite her and say, why don't you come in and sit down and rest those legs? She ends up in the newspaper office, and she passes out on the desk, presumably, and they call a black doctor, who we find out his end a little bit later in the book. He ends up dressing up like a chauffeur, because it's the only way he can drive her back home, because could a black man, a random black man, just drive a white woman? No, not at all. So you get a really good picture of how segregated Tulsa is. And eventually, Graceful back home, or
She agrees to come back.
Or
But
they
she
absorb
already-
it, right?
Yeah, but she'd already spent time with her brother and her mother and stuff like that in another town where he was hiding out.
He was finding out because he had been involved in something, he thought he would be an accomplice, he thought he was being looked for, he was
His girlfriend's brother was the one that was finished, according to the book.
It is, the
And
mother of his child.
Yeah, right. And because they were friends and stuff, we did friends or together, whatever they're doing, it never specifically said. But he was worried that they were after him now too.
I have a feeling, based on the level of conversation, most people have not read the book, that we are in my and we can't really discuss themes if you haven't read them.
I already went through chapter 1, just chapter.
I'm not asking for confessions. But because I've seen some nods from people, and we're talking about details of the book, it makes absolutely no sense to you. So I told you before, I remember last week, I said last week we're discussing it on Monday. You haven't read the book, and yet you have to write a book review on it. Because all I've done is stand up here and talk about the book. And I haven't gotten to any of the major themes or actually what happened in the book yet. It's all built up. So what should you do? Just throw you out there to the wolves? Because you have a book review. What should I do? Because it's 1:39, we have 6 minutes left in a class that I hope that at least half of it would just be you guys talking about what you found interesting, what you thought the purpose was. I'm a little confused. I'm not confused. I'm a little dismayed. So suggestions? Who read the book? Who has read the book all the way through?
All the way through?
All the way through. Okay, it's only 300, you've had it since the beginning of the semester. Okay. I started it again yesterday, on Friday, because I wanted to reread it, and I finished it yesterday. And I was out in the bed all weekend. And I'm a slow reader, I'm very slow reader. Graceful ends up having the baby of the father is the baby that she was supposed to have killed.
Because he went to her in the alley in the town.
Okay, I don't get into minutia. I do not want to get into, because it means nothing to anyone that hasn't read the book. I honestly don't know what to do. I don't know what to, because I was gonna, if we had had some discussion, I could have said, well, why does the author write this book? What is she trying to do here? What are the themes here? How does she accomplish her purpose or not accomplish her purpose? These ingredients do a book review that you're going to be critiqued on, but if you haven't read the book, Yes,
So
ma'am.
the purpose be, to like expose the violence of the racial violence aspect, would that be like the main purpose of?
I wouldn't think so, because she wouldn't need all this character development. I think it's, that's, the context of the book is, the cutthroat oil industry in Oklahoma, and it's racially charged because they're trying to cheat Americans out of their land rights, which we saw with Tiger. And you have these low-life individuals like David who are involved, who life means nothing to them, and they're going around killing. So you have this horrible context in which this story is taking place, and racist Tulsa, racist Oklahoma, and yet we have this weird dynamic between Thea and Graceful that I think in relationship is the purpose of the book.
I think Althea starts actually caring for Graceful.
Yeah.
So
Like
that
the
first
book
she
goes
said
on.
that she like didn't care too much about her.
She says earlier, she says about the only about two-thirds of the book she despised. They sort of despise each
You know,
other,
suddenly she's worried about it.
and then she doesn't want to leave when she moves out. So, that clock is on. It's only 1:43. But I say, I don't know what to do. I guess if you want to talk about the book, and my other comments, we can talk through these things, but I've never had so many people read the book. There's another book that's we're reading for this class, but not the author, because it would be too embarrassing to read this book and go on. And if I was writing this book and no one read it, I do not want to embarrass myself. And certainly you wouldn't want to be embarrassed by that either. So you need to